In this video I wanted to talk about the inner life and Guru Yoga. So what is the inner life? We have a choice of perspectives, of views, of different ideas in life, and those views are: how do we recognize truth? How do we understand what it means to be alive? How to function in the world? And in the West, the Western history or the Western perspective on this has been almost exclusively that truth is outside of you. So in the West, we have great books that were written down. Other people had inner experiences, different experiences. They wrote that down. And somehow those experiences become the canon or the guide for life, what somebody else has written down. And so in religion we have these great books from the three Abrahamic traditions. And in modern times, since the Renaissance and the quote Enlightenment, this has been expressed as the scientific method. So there's a perspective that how we understand life in the Western meme or the Western view is outside of ourselves. We observe what's outside of ourselves, and by observing or learning or memorizing something that is outside of ourselves, we then gain mastery over the subject and then become a better person, understand life better. The challenge or the problem with this approach is that it's based on a set of faulty ideas. Some of those ideas are based on, say, Newtonian mechanics, that the world is a clock, or the world is composed of solid, substantial matter, and that if we can just be precise enough, or if we can be good enough, or learn things well enough, then we'll gain mastery over this fixed universe that follows these laws that we can totally understand and we can totally master, and we can just do whatever we want to do on the planet because we understand it all. Now this kind of external view of conquering the external world has started to fall apart in the West through quantum physics and through understanding the paradoxes behind wave and particle and observer and all of this. So this kind of view that truth is on the outside, it's in a book, it can be in your mind in terms of understanding complicated things, makes you a smarter person, and you can control nature, all these things. That's one view, and that's predominantly a Western materialistic, exoteric view, that truth is outside of you, that authority is outside of you, and that you can control nature. Now there's another view. This other view has been embodied or carried primarily in the East, and really mystical, spiritual people of all spiritual traditions have been also plugged into this other view. This other view is that not only do we need to learn from nature, because nature embodies principles that are very intricate, they're very interdependent, but that inside of us is a mirror of the living nature that we see on the outside. So this is why often people who are on a spiritual path go on a retreat, they go into nature. Even indigenous peoples in their ceremonies wanted to open themselves by focusing on their relationship with nature, and then their relationship with the community, and their relationship inside of themselves. So rather than a Western path where everything's an object, the Eastern or the mystical way is to view everything as a set of relationships, as a set of processes in life. So the great spiritual paths of the East, things like Taoism, the yin and the yang, what is that? Those are forces or principles that are in relationship. You see the same thing in other spiritual paths, and the way that the spiritual paths give rise to different modalities, different ways of healing. In Ayurvedic medicine, you have the doshas, so you have a principle of 3 rather than a principle of 2, and these different ways of looking at life and interpreting the world. So I want to bring now this view about looking at relationship to the subject of the inner life and Guru Yoga. So the inner life is the extension of viewing nature as having wisdom and as being a wonderful, very magical place that needs to be cherished and cultivated in the terms of our responsibility to it, not just from what we can get out of it, but we want to be in relationship with the land. We want to be in relationship with nature. We want to understand the wisdom that's there, because it's had many millions of years to build up how it is today. So part of the realization or the way of the inner life is to realize how the mind works, and to realize that not only can we learn things from nature by studying it, but we can learn things about ourselves from studying ourselves in concentration or contemplation. You can think of different forms of meditation, which eventually lead you to a realization. So indigenous peoples and mystical spiritual peoples realize that there are different processes, there are different methods, there are prayer, different ceremonies, all these things that can help you to be in harmony with nature and to develop as a human being who is appreciative of love, of harmony, and of beauty. So this whole method of waking up is the inner life. So about the inner life, now specifically about Guru Yoga, what I want to say here is that if you're coming from a Western perspective, from one of the Abrahamic religions, and we talk about Guru Yoga, so let me give you an idea what I'm talking about. Let's say in an inner life path that's called Buddhism, there might be some what we could consider archetypes or heroes or beings who embody divine principles. And by divine principles, I'm not trying to make a separation between human and divine. By divine, I mean a being who is in tune with the larger processes in nature. And when I say nature, I mean the earth, I mean the stars, the cosmos. All of these things are extensions of one another, which are in relationship with one another. The earth is in the relationship with the sun. The water is in a relationship with the air. The animals are in a relationship with the land. All these things are in relationships. And when we talk about the inner life, we're talking about cultivating inner relationships, because it's through those relationships that we develop like a flower. So in Guru Yoga, what we do in terms of its relationship to the inner life, or how the inner life works, and let me just show you a couple pictures here. So in Guru Yoga, this is a picture of Tara. We could decide that we want to use Tara as our hero or as our divine principle in terms of awakening certain qualities in us. So this is feminine, Guru, and Guru is a Sanskrit word which means to lead from darkness to light, or to lead from unconsciousness to consciousness, or to lead from ignorance to awareness. Another type of guru you could use in Guru Yoga, this is Guru Padmasambhava. And Padmasambhava is the person who brought Buddhism to Tibet. He's considered by some to be the second Buddha. So what happens when we use these symbols, going back to Tara now for a second, what happens when we use these symbols is, this is not a form of idolatry. This is a very common misunderstanding by some religions when they view statues or images like this, that it's idolatry, you're worshiping a god, etc. If somebody saw an image like this or a statue, and their background was from the Western externalized meme, whereas they view everything as an object that's external versus something that you're in relationship with, that person from the Western meme could get really freaked out by talking about, an image of a deity. So somebody who is on the inner life and who's on the path of inner awakening, when they view an image like this, they realize Tara is no different than I am. In the ultimate sense, all of the qualities and all of the beauty and all the wisdom that Tara possess is inside of me at some level, is inside of you at some level. So what Tara becomes then is a mirror that we view ourselves in a perfected state. And when you view an image like this, just the process of the mind is to attenuate or to resonate with those qualities that you're working on or that you have latent inside of you, which exhibit what you see coming from the image of Tara. So for instance, there are many stories about Tara, about how Tara developed. In one of the stories, Avalokiteshvara, overcome with the multitude of beings who are in samsara, who are on the wheel of reincarnation or the wheel of existence. Avalokiteshvara is so overcome with concern and compassion and almost, I don't want to say hopelessness, but so overcome with the whole situation that the tear that comes out of Avalokiteshvara is Tara. So the Tara is that embodiment of compassion for every single being. And it's that aspect that says, no matter what you're going through, that energy of love and compassion and support can come into you and can come into your situation. So somebody who's on the inner life or the inner path wants to develop those qualities of compassion, of appreciation for nature, of appreciation for beauty, of being able to express love to others and to self, to have a way to maintain good relationships. So, by using something that you would first look at as an external image in a practice like this, you would take the card with Tara and you would look at it, you would think about Tara, notice some details about what she is holding or what is around her, the rainbow, etc. You would look at it, you would think about Tara. You might use the mantra of Tara, for instance. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha is one form of mantra for Tara. And then you would close your eyes. So when you open your eyes, you think about what would it feel like to be Tara, or what would it feel like to be in Tara's presence, around a very strong, loving, mother-type energy. And you connect with that feeling inside of you. How does it feel? Or how about if you had a child? How do you feel when that child is in need and hurting? What is the feeling or the energy or the sense of love, compassion and caring that you want to extend to them? And you connect with that feeling. So you look at the image, connect with the image, connect with the feeling, and then close your eyes. And just use your breath and breathe into the heart, breathe into any part of you where you feel that energy, and then where you don't feel that energy. So you can see that by using this almost as a tool, a starting point in Guru Yoga, what you're doing is attuning to the energy that Tara represents. You're not attuning to something that's outside of yourself. And that's the key point in this distinction between the Western and the Eastern viewpoints, is the world is not a set of objects. The world is not a set of fixed things that are material, that are always going to be this way and never change. And if things are waves and not concrete particles, that means they're always in motion and they're always changing. And if we developed fixed ideas or assume that every person needs to follow the same kind of training growing up as a child, or the same kind of behaviors in the world, or they need to think and act like I do, everybody needs to be uniform, then that's counter to the principles of nature. Nature is not built on uniformity. Nature is built on diversity. So part of the struggle or the challenge for somebody who wants to be on the spiritual path coming from a Western culture is that you have to pretty much unlearn what you were taught as a child. And that doesn't mean if there's beauty or truth in a Western tradition or heritage that you've grown up with, that it nullifies it. What it does is to actually liberate it from the historical dogma or the fixed thinking about things. Down through time, we tend to think a certain person was a good person or a bad person or whatever. And when you engage in inner life and inner practices, what you do is you free yourself up from these conventional thoughts and understand, well, what is that person or what is that thing to you right now? What is your realization? Because what you're doing is you're engaged in a process. So what Guru Yoga is to engage in a relationship with those aspects of yourself that may be latent or hidden or suppressed, or you may have learned how to ignore, and to wake those up. And it's not a selfish practice, because when you are engaged in this practice and when you are tuning in and turning on components of yourself, what happens is that energy is not just an energy that says, oh, look how good I am, look how I can progress. What that energy is an energy that wants to flow out. So just like the Tara or the Padmasambhava would be somebody who traveled, who went around helping people, that same kind of energy, when you develop it internally, is an energy for service. It's an energy that wants to find a way to be in service, to be in a relationship with other beings, and wants to live in harmony with the larger principles of nature. So there's a set of Western means and Western principles, but there's a larger, much wiser set of principles from nature, from the cosmos, from just the mystery of life and the mysteries beyond life. So I'm suggesting that if you're someone who considers yourself to be either a spiritual person or wants to be a spiritual person or wants to wake up or get closer to enlightenment or even to be a better person, then tuning in inwardly through some means is a very helpful mechanism for you to accomplish that. Tuning in somehow, prayer, meditation, mantra, different practices, using prayer beads and saying your prayers on the prayer beads, saying different prayers, different mantras, etc. All of these things help to loosen these fixed ideas that you have about yourself and about your world. And they become loosened and lubricated by engaging with an internal dynamic process that isn't constant, that isn't the same, that varies. And you know, you can consider that you have a very lucid mind or you're a very smart person, but at different times of the day your thought process is stronger, or you can't concentrate, or when you don't feel good. You know, even in the mental emotional realms, we're changing all the time. I'm suggesting that if you tune in using the tools like Guru Yoga, what you're doing is you're putting your spiritual path in a more supported, more almost supercharged modality. That you are using the principles of relationship, because you're tuning into an idealized being who has accomplished what you can't accomplish eventually. So you're in relationship, you're awakening your own sense of the Guru inside, is basically what you're doing. Because what you focus on is what you become. And if you focus on a being who's a Guru, who's in control or attunement with their inner self and their expanded self, if you're focusing on that, eventually, just like carrying grains of sand and making a pile, eventually over time, you will have built up something there. You will have concentrated these qualities inside your being, and there will be an effect. So, I'm encouraging you to explore the inner path, the inner life, and to try Guru Yoga and see what effects it can have for you. And, dedicate at least 40 days or 3 months or 6 months or a year to, one or two of these deities, these archetypes, and see what kind of effect that it has. See how it changes you inside for the better, and how it can help to change our world. Thanks.